It is 1:30 Universal Time. I'm Steve Ember in Washington. President Bush and British Prime Minister Tony Blair held a press conference at the White House Thursday evening. The two leaders discussed the war in Iraq. President Bush said that Iraqi leaders have discussed a plan to improve security and services with Mr. Blair. Mr. Blair recently returned from a visit to Iraq. President Bush said Iraqi Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki has said he will use force to defeat terrorists and will ban illegal armed groups. Mr. Bush said violence in Iraq has been difficult for the world to understand, but he said he still believes the decision to remove former Iraqi leader Saddam Hussein was correct. The top United States Marine officer is traveling to Iraq to tell his forces to use deadly force only when it is justified. At the same time, the American military is investigating if Marines killed civilians unnecessarily in 2 incidents. Thursday, a statement from the Marine Corps said General Michael Hagee will tell Marines in Iraq that they have a duty to apply only the force needed. General Hagee says Marines must follow international wartime laws. He also says they have a duty to protect non-enemies they find on the battlefield. The Marine Corps statement said General Hagee will not speak about either of the incidents under investigation. An officer being questioned in the trial of an American soldier says a general urged the use of dogs to scare Iraqi prisoners. However, the officer said he did not remember if he had heard that dogs should be used in the questioning of prisoners at Abu Ghraib prison in Iraq. Lieutenant Colonel Jerry Fillebaum spoke before a military court Thursday. He said General Jeffrey Miller had urged workers at Abu Ghraib to use dogs as much as possible to control prisoners. Sergeant Santos Cardona is being tried on charges of using his dog to harm Iraqi prisoners at Abu Ghraib. His lawyers have argued that he was following orders from his supervisors. The Israeli government has approved the movement of weapons to security forces guarding the Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas. The Israeli Defense Ministry announced the decision Thursday. In the West Bank, supporters of 2 Palestinian groups, Fatah and Hamas, opened talks aimed at settling their differences and easing tensions. Mr. Abbas told the meeting that he will order a special vote on accepting a Palestinian state next to Israel if Hamas does not agree to the idea in 10 days. He said that such a vote would be held within 40 days of the 10-day time limit. The 5 permanent members of the United Nations Security Council and Germany could meet next week to discuss Iran's nuclear program. Foreign ministers of the 6 countries could complete a plan aimed at influencing Iran to end its nuclear program. An American State Department spokesman said the meeting would probably be in Europe at the end of next week. Earlier Thursday, American Undersecretary of State Nicholas Burns said a meeting of the 6 nations that took place in London Wednesday went well, but he said the diplomats were unable to reach an agreement. In related news, Iran's first Vice President, Parviz Davoudi, repeated Iran's position that it has the right to develop nuclear technology. You are listening to the news in VOA Special English. A small bomb explosion has killed 3 Colombian children who found the device near a road and took it home where it exploded. Officials say the explosion took place in the Cañas Gordas area of Antioquia State. It killed 2 brothers, ages 10 and 12, and their relative. A 7-year-old girl was also injured. Officials in Cuba say 7 people are dead after heavy rains flooded Havana this week. They say the victims were ages 18 to 75. Officials say the heavy rain began late Tuesday. More than 12 centimeters of rain fell in Havana in 2 hours. The Communist Party daily newspaper, Granma, reported many people were forced to leave the area. Flooded streets have stopped traffic in the city. The United States Senate has approved a version of immigration reform legislation. The bill would increase border security and give millions of foreigners living and working illegally in the country a chance to become American citizens. The bill also calls for a temporary worker program. The Senate approved the bill by a vote of 62 to 36 Thursday. However, it must still be rewritten to agree with a bill passed by the House of Representatives last year. The House bill would make being in the United States illegally a major crime. Scientists say they have new evidence confirming the AIDS virus was first passed to humans through chimpanzees in West Central Africa. An American team said in the publication Science that tests of chimpanzee waste from Cameroon contained a version of the HIV virus. The virus causes AIDS in humans. The virus has never before been found in the wild. Unlike HIV, the chimpanzee virus, known as SIV, does not make its carriers sick. The scientists say they believe a human got the virus many years ago, either through killing, eating, or being bitten by a chimpanzee. They say human-to-human infections probably began in the 1930s. And the Foreign Secretary of India says he believes American laws will be changed soon to approve a civilian nuclear deal between India and the United States. Sham Saran spoke after a meeting in London with visiting American Under-Secretary of State Nicholas Burns Thursday. No details of the talks were released. Congress is still debating if it will change U.S. law to permit the nuclear deal with India. Briefly, here again is the major news of the hour. The top United States Marine officer is traveling to Iraq to tell his forces to use deadly force only when it is justified. An officer being questioned in the trial of an American soldier says a general urged the use of dogs to scare Iraqi prisoners. And the Israeli government has approved the movement of weapons to security forces guarding the Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas. That's the news in VOA Special English. Steve